Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside Out Smile. I'm your host, Dr. Amber Q, and I'm grateful that you've joined me today, so thank you for tuning in. I really want to just say buckle up, people, because I've got a lot to say today. So let's start. I've been looking forward to a talk that I was doing on a rather large London stage. It was in Kensington Olympia, and I was quite excited about it because I've been on a couple of large stages, but sometimes, you just feel really passionate about a topic. And so I'd submitted all my things prior to the event, my bio, my photo, my presentation, and then about 4 or 5 days before my talk, my mother was taken into hospital. So my talk was interesting because there was just, I was really looking forward to it, but it became quite a stressful event. And it was really interesting because it was just, it was a good lesson. And this will become even more clear in a moment. So on the day of the event, I was ready to get there early, always got a contingency plan. And it turned out there'd been problems on the train earlier during the day. But because of my forward planning, I got there on time. Actually, let me rephrase that. By the grace of God, I got there on time. And in fact, slightly earlier. Because obviously as a sort of, as a speaker, they want to, get you mic'd up and everything. And because of the issue with the trains, because of course it's in central London, many of the speakers had issues because I think the roads had become very blocked and congested as well. So whether people were coming by train, taxi, car, or, driving themselves, they had all gotten delayed. So the schedule went a little bit crazy and the talk went ahead and it was fine. But it just, because I'd been... because I'd spent a lot of time in the accident and emergency department quite late at night and been sort of on the hospital ward, etc. I wasn't sort of feeling A1. And so that showmanship or showwomanship, I should say, that I really enjoy doing my talks wasn't quite there. It wasn't quite there, but it was fine. It was fine. And I got to meet one of my clients, which was lovely. She came to see me. We'd only met previously. Obviously, we'd had our sort of coaching sessions on Zoom. And that was really lovely to meet her face to face. So that was nice. And it was a great day. Now, on the way back, funnily enough, the trains which had been returning to normal suddenly seemed to be problematic again on the return journey. And so I ended up walking to another station with a journalist. And this was such an interesting trip. She had been to the conference. She'd missed my talk, I think, because of the trains. So I essentially gave her my talk as we were walking along, which was quite good fun. And she was lovely. So, hello, I'm not going to mention your name in case you don't want me to, but it was lovely to meet you. We also met a gorgeous black toy poodle en route, a little boy who was a little puppy, I should say, who was 4 months old. It reminded me of my little poodle, and I had a cuddle, and it was just wonderful. And we got onto the tube. So we'd moved from the train station to a tube station. And then, funnily enough, as we were on the tube, one stop later, somebody had pressed the emergency sort of alarm in Bond Street. So for those of you who are not in London, Bond Street is in the West End, in central London as well. Whereas we were sort of in the West End, but a sort of slightly different side in Kensington. And so we were stuck at this point prior to, we hadn't reached Bond Street. So we decided to get off the tube. Now, when I say we, I'm actually referring to myself and this journalist that I'd met. But there was also a girl sitting next to me on the tube. And she was very tired, bless her. And as the tube announcer was sort of or the tube staff member was making announcements, he was sort of he was trying to keep everyone updated, but he didn't know what was happening. And finally, half an hour later, he conceded that it was probably best to get off the tube. So the girl that was sitting next to me, she was stunning, by the way. She looked like a model. She was lovely. It's so interesting, isn't it, when you come across people that are so warm and so lovely. So she knew the way to Notting Hill. So we decided that we would then walk to the next tube station, which was Notting Hill, which had connections to other tube lines. And so we all got off the tube. So there were now 3 of us. And we then walked along chatting, and it was really quite interesting. So this other girl, she was lovely. She was actually a hairdresser, and we walked past a certain celeb's house, and that was quite cute as well. I knew that the celeb lived in that area. I mean, should I mention the name? I don't know. Anyway, she pointed out to his particular house, and that's all I'll say. And I've met this particular person who is absolutely lovely. But it was quite funny because we were all just chatting along. We got to the station, we wished each other well, and and then we departed and sort of resumed our journeys. And I thought it was so interesting because the previous couple of weeks, and I can't even remember if I've mentioned this on the podcast, the previous week I'd had rather a strange episode, or not strange, but interesting, or serendipitous, I should say. And I may have mentioned it actually on the previous episode. But I just thought, this is so interesting. I keep meeting people on public transport, which probably happened years ago, but now I just drive everywhere. But I thought that was so interesting. These people are lovely. And it was just, with moments like this, you just get a glimpse. You just get a glimpse in people's lives. So suffice to say, a 20-minute journey took over 3 hours. And I did want to visit my mother in the hospital, but I didn't get a chance to that day because by the time I returned, it was too late and visiting hours were over. But I thought to myself, as I reflected upon my day, that, my gosh, it was a real lesson in resilience. It really, really was. And it really strikes me that people have such different lives, don't they? But we all want the same things. It's when we all start exchanging stories, we're all the same. Absolutely, just all the same. And this brings me on to my next point. I read something the other day, which quite frankly is, I don't want to say disturbing, but I think that it's just, whether or not you are spiritual or not, it is, I think, the nature or a universal law. And that is that the situation in Gaza and Palestine is so terrible. It's so dire. And of course, since this has all started, we have been saying, or myself and other people have been saying, that if one is silent, then one is complicit in genocide. And the thing is that it's been so barbaric, so savage, that the post that I was reading, which was actually from an Islamic scholar, but I think this just goes, when we all think about the laws of the universe, this is aligned with that, whatever one's faith. And essentially, the scholar was essentially saying that the world has largely stood silent and has not intervened. And basically, there's going to be retribution. There's going to be retribution. And I think that's quite frightening, but, makes total sense. So for those of you who haven't spoken up about Gaza, or for those of you who haven't donated or shared articles, I don't know, maybe now is the time to do so, because things are worse than they've ever been. And I think just as part of the human race, we need to stand up and make a stance. So please do that in whatever way you can. whether it's within your own self by educating yourself, by actually looking and seeing what's happening. Because believe me, when you see those gaunt, drawn faces, those starving babies, it will move your heart. And if it doesn't, you need to re-examine your heart. And the thing is that, you know, because it's not happening on our doorstep, because it's far away, it doesn't mean it's not happening. And if it's happening there, it can happen anywhere. And the thing is, you know, by divine laws, whatever you want to call them, the laws of nature, the land has been destroyed there. I mean, even the land is rejecting the occupiers there. It's so, I don't know. I mean, any word that I use would be an understatement. But it's so grotesque that such a thing is happening on holy land. And again, don't get me wrong, it would be grotesque wherever it was happening. And I know that there is a lot of injustice, massacres, and there are other genocides as well. But the point is, it's particularly, I should say, grotesque that is happening on holy land. So please, all I can say is make some sort of a stance, because if you don't stand for anything, you stand for nothing, quite frankly. So that's one thing that I would like to say. And I think that just leads quite nicely into something else that I've been thinking about. And this is that as we look at social media, as all of us do, you know, social media can be a great tool. Obviously, people also use it for business and pleasure. And it's so strange, isn't it? Because AI, I mean, it's fascinating. Again, it's another tool. It can be very helpful. But it just seems to me that everything is becoming, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe this. I don't want to say very sort of sterile, but in a way, yes. There is just so much, I guess, content out there that just keeps us hooked. But it's a lot of it is just, it just seems so sterile and impersonal. I guess that comes down to being sterile anyway. And without compassion, without feeling, without any authenticity. And I think that a few people are realizing that, and they're moving across to express themselves in different ways. And I will be launching a couple of things myself, which of course will be, you know, free to sort of subscribe to. So details for that will be forthcoming. But it's really making me feel, you know, everyone's starting to speak about, or everyone does speak about, oh, mindfulness and compassion, but do they really exhibit it? This is what I want to know. Where is real passion and authenticity and humanity? That's what we want. We don't want passion that's just useless, quite frankly, or grotesque, because we've seen, I don't even want to call it passion, but arrogance. There's a lot of arrogance at the moment, isn't there? Which is not a good thing. I don't know. You know, I've just been on a bit of a rant today, haven't I? But I'm really feeling, I think people that are genuine are really feeling this, the inauthenticity and the, I don't know, you know, the world is so topsy-turvy at the moment. You've got journalists who tell the truth being persecuted. It's just disgusting. It is disgusting. And I think, you know, I said this a long time ago that the masks have come off, but really the masks have really come off now. And I think that there's no, you know, in life, I've always said that you either grow or decay. There's no standing stationary. And I think morally, it's the same. You've either got to have a moral stance or just admit that you are, you know, immoral, because if one is silent, then one is complicit in injustice generally. You know, whether you see it in the street, whether you see it, I don't know, just anywhere. I mean, there's so many wonderful people out there. And honestly, I've met some of them in the hospital. And whether it was a patient or a staff member, and yes, people are overworked, they are understaffed. But, you know, if they're tired and you just give them a bit of humanity, then they will just return it tenfold or fivefold. but multifold in some way. So the question is, are you a cyborg or are you a real human? That's the thought that I'm going to leave you to ponder with, because we can all be selfish in terms of our own needs, and that's quite an animalistic instinct, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to animals, but in fact even animals, there are lots of videos and genuine videos about moments where animals have been caught just doing wonderful acts of compassion. So I even feel that that's disrespectful, to be honest, to animals. But the point is, anyone can be selfish with regards to their own needs. That's not true compassion. So where are you on that moral spectrum? I'm not saying that I'm a wonderful person, and this reminder is, to myself as well, because I don't think that I've done enough. I don't think that I've done enough for people that are suffering all over the world, but especially, for the Palestinians. I don't think I've done enough at all, but I just think that we need to examine our conscience, because it's so easy to get caught up in our own world, in our own selfish day-to-day routine. And what does that make us? Robotic? Just, moving on automatic pilot? I don't know. I think that's something to think about. Where are we on that spectrum of morality? I'm kind of doing a scale thing at the moment. So until the next episode, let's all create connection and not just change lives, but save lives.